Writing music is hard. Scratch that. Writing good music is hard. It's not easy to make it big as a composer or producer. If only there was one simple trick to instantly make good music. What's this? Are you a musician with a struggling career? Not anymore. Try out this one simple trick to get rich yesterday. But I went into debt last week. Find out how to get out of debt in only 15 minutes. Click the link below to sign up for free. Incredible! Now, a normal person would dismiss this as spam and miss out on such an amazing offer, but lucky for me, I'm a Discord user. I click on any link that gets sent my way by strangers. I just need to gather up all of my personal info to sign up. So, in the meantime, let's talk about secondary dominance. So, first of all, what exactly is a secondary dominant? Let's break it up into two parts. In music theory, the term dominant is often used to refer to the chord in your key that leads back to the tonic chord, the 5 chord. For example, if we're in the key of C major, we go to our 5th note, build a major chord on top of it, which gets us G major, or G7 if you want to have some extra spice, and as you can see, it resolves very nicely to our tonic C. The same goes for minor keys, even though we get non-diatonic, meaning we go outside of the notes of our key. So, A minor to E7 to A minor. Really nice sound. Now, here comes the fun part. We've established that we can use a 5 chord to set up a nice resolution, but what if instead of resolving to our tonic chord, we want a chord that resolves to another chord in our key? This is where the secondary part comes in. We take another chord in our key than the tonic and think, what would the dominant chord of this chord be? For example, we're in the key of C major again. Let's say we want to go to our 2 chord, D minor. We can go 5 notes up from D, it gives us A, make it the major chord, or add any dominant extensions, and boom! We found a really colorful and satisfying way to get to our 2 chord. And as you might have noticed, we have used a chord that is not part of our key. A major is nowhere to be found in the key of C. And that's what makes the sound of the secondary dominant chord so exciting. If you're getting bored of the same old normal diatonic harmony, secondary dominants are one of the easiest ways to break free and move outside of your key with confidence and purpose. In my opinion, at least. Let's try another example for good measure. This time in the key of C minor. What if we want to go to our 4 chord? We take our 4 chord, F minor, move up 5 notes in the scale to C, make it a major chord, and there we have another secondary dominant, this time bringing us to our minor 4 chord. I've been putting a lot of emphasis on finding a destination, and not without reason. Very often writing music is about finding a place and then finding a means of getting to the place, and I think secondary dominants are extremely fun to utilize for this. Secondary dominants most often show up in genres like jazz, but they're also common for basically any type of mainstream music from Japan. So if you want to give your song an anime type flavor, you might find secondary dominants to be very helpful. Like with everything in music, there is no best way to use a secondary dominant. Everything is dependent on context, naturally. However, I have found a trick that lets you easily get the most of your secondary dominant, I think. Sadly, this does not work well for every chord, but I will go over some effective progressions later, so don't worry. I like to call this trick third up or third down. For this, we actually don't start with a destination like in the previous segment, but we start with a chord that sets up our secondary dominant. Let's start in C major again and use our 1 chord. Now, if we move a third up or a third down, we get a secondary dominant that sounds really nice. If we go up, we go from C major to E major, which resolves to A minor. If we go down, we go from C major to A major to D minor. In these progressions, the second chord not only acts as a secondary dominant to the chord up next, but also as a chromatic median to the chord that came before it. The reason these chord progressions work so well is because of the chromatic inner voicing. If we play the secondary dominant a third up again, you'll see that the 5th of the C major chord moves to the 3rd of the E major chord, which moves to the root of the A minor chord. If we play the secondary dominant a third down again, we'll get the inner voicing going from the root of the C major chord to the 3rd of A major to the root of D minor. What's fun about this second example is that we can easily put this inner voicing in our bass line as well. C major to A major with 3rd in the bass, giving us A major over C to D minor. Check out how Battle 1 from Octopath Traveler uses this chromatic bass motion as a motif in its C section. Doesn't that sound incredibly awesome? What's funny about going chromatically up like this is that we're essentially using passing diminished chords. Check this out. If we take a dominant 7 chord with the 3rd in the bass, we can pretty much just get rid of the root note and look at a diminished chord. So when we go up a whole step, but pass by this chromatic diminished chord, we call that a passing diminished chord. You can also do this with a diminished 7 chord, which is pretty much the same as a dominant 7 flat 9 chord with the 3rd in the bass. If this sounds really confusing, I'll have a video linked over here that goes into more depth regarding this subject. Now, like I said, this technique is somewhat limited. You can just take any chord and go a 3rd up or a 3rd down without staying relatively in your key, unless of course your goal is to go far outside of the key. But if you're looking to have your piece stay in a more defined tonal center, here's some common chord progressions I think are worth noting, with a few examples for each one, starting with major keys and ending with minor keys. So in major keys, we have the 1, going to the 5 of 6, being the major 3, to 6. One, going to the 5 of 2, being the major 6, to 2. 4, going to the 5 of 5, being the major 2, to 5. 5, going to the 5 of 6, being the major 3, to 6. 'Now for the examples in minor, we have flat 3 to the 5 of 4, being the major 1, the 4. 4 to the 5 of 5, being the major 2, to 5.
Our friend, or just be stuck in the fence. After all, you only got 5 nights and days.
Flat 6 to the 5 of flat 7, being the major 4, to flat 7. Now, you may be wondering, these secondary dominants sound cool and all, but won't they become predictable if you always know where they'll lead you? Lucky for you, there's fun ways to subvert expectations. Setting up a resolution but going somewhere else instead is what we call a deceptive cadence. Of course, if you really want to surprise the listener, you could theoretically go anywhere with this. However, I have a few examples that work very well in the context of a secondary dominant. One common deceptive resolution is moving one step up from the dominant. Try to think of it this way. Say the secondary dominant sets up a resolution to a chord that is diatonically major, we move to the minor 6th chord of that chord instead. So if we have a C7, trying to bring us to F major, we can instead use that to deviate and go up a whole step to D minor instead. Say the secondary dominant sets up a resolution to a chord that is diatonically minor, we can instead move to the flat 6 of that chord. So if our secondary dominant is an E7, wanting to resolve to A minor, we can go up a half step to bring us to F major instead. Let's take a look at how something like this can be utilized by listening to the track Background Checks Are Fundamental to Investigations from Princess Connect Redive. So, what the hell is going on here? We start out in the key of D major with our 4 chords, G major. This then moves down a half step to F sharp minor 7th, setting up an obvious move to the minor 6th chord. But once we go to that 6th chord, we suddenly find out that it's a major chord instead, making this a 2-5, setting up a release to E minor, the 2 chord in our home key of D major. However, instead of giving us that resolution, the tune surprises us by going up a half step to C major, that being the flat 6 of the E minor tonality we were setting up. But we're not done yet. The coolest thing about this is that we're now neither in the key of D major or E minor. Instead, we have moved to the key of G major, which is the relative major key of F minor. How do we know that? After floating on that C chord for a bit, we get an E flat major to F major to G major, which is a flat 6, flat 7 to 1 cadence in G, making the C chord that came before it the 4 chord in our new key. So what does this mean? I've been throwing a lot of terms around here, but what is it that I'm trying to say, and what is it that the piece is trying to accomplish? I think the best way to summarize it is that this track uses a deceptive cadence in order to take away the listener's tonal footing for a bit, before sticking the landing with an unexpected modulation and cadence that still makes sense tonally in regards to the rest of the track. Honestly, I could make a whole video about this piece, it's so well put together. Lastly, another way to mess with secondary dominance is by setting up a cadence, but then prolonging it a little before actually going to the dominant chord. What do I mean by this? Let's take a look at Shadow Lord from Nier Replicant. What happens here is that the track sets up a move to the 5 chord, that being C major in our key of F minor, by use of this B flat minor to G7 over B progression, the latter of these being the secondary dominant, leading to C. What we get instead is a 1 chord with its 5th in the bass, F minor over C, extending the tension before we actually get to that C chord. We can see something a little more elaborate in A Story That Connects With You from Princess Connect Redive, where the 505 once again sets up our dominant chord, but instead the progression is prolonged by this 4 to 5-705 to 5 progression. So yeah, there's tons of ways to defy the expectations of a secondary dominant. But do keep in mind that if your goal is to surprise the listener a little bit, just a normal secondary dominant resolution also does the job very well. And submit. All I needed to provide was my full name, my phone number, my date of birth, my home address, my social security number, my credit card information, my parents' full names, the name of my first pet, the name of my first love, a photo of my face, and a photo of my little toe. Now all that's left is to wait for the simple trick to arrive in the mail. I didn't get anything. All I got was a call from the credit card department saying they detected suspicious activity from my account. Not sure what's up with that, but I don't have the time to check up on it now because I'm in double debt and time is money, you know? But I'm starting to lose hope here. I don't think they're actually going to send me the simple trick. Maybe the real simple trick was the secondary dominance we talked about along the way. Dang it.